Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Rick Flag. Played by Joel Kinnaman, Rick Flag was in the 2016 Suicide Squad film, directed by David Ayer, and it wasn't received well by the public, so much so that fans have been petitioning for a release of the hashtag Ayer cut. But that's it's not gonna happen, I don't think. But we do get another shot with our loved characters. This time around, Rick Flag looks even more badass. Rick Flag is an elite soldier and government agent who works for Task Force X. So like we see in the film adaptation, Rick is the leader of the first Suicide Squad. Yes, there are more than one, which I'll get into later. Amanda Waller enlisted him when she created the Suicide Squad, which is a task force made of supervillains who take on these high-risk missions in order to get parole, reduce sentences, freedom, something glorious, something to look forward to use their abilities in a good way, or some kind of good way. He made his first comic book debut in The Brave and the Bold issue 25, titled The Three Waves of Doom. And we're looking forward to seeing James Gunn version of him come August 4th. The third wave of Doom sounds familiar up here in Canada, hence why I'm in my apartment. And before we continue with some other dangerous Suicide Squad members, guys, that like button needs some love right now. You can feel it, I don't know, it's right there, it wants a little. So if you want to go ahead and click that, it helps our studio out quite a bit. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching. Now let's get right back into this list. I don't want to waste too much of your time. Number 9, Bloodsport. Idris Elba is making the jump from a major Marvel character to a major Superman villain. That's right, Bloodsport. He made his first comic book debut back in Superman Volume 2, Issue 14. And the first Bloodsport, there's of course more than one, that's how these things go, classic comic book villains. But the first one was Robert Dubois. Robert got drafted as a young man, but instead fled to Canada, and his brother had to take his place instead. Now his brother Mickey ended up losing his arm and legs when he got drafted, so Robert was a little messed up after carrying that guilt with him. So much so that he spent the next 12 years going back and forth between psychiatric hospitals. That is until Lex Luthor found him and used him as a way to take down Superman. He gave Robert this device that could teleport any weapon to him, and one of them of course being a gun that fires needles of kryptonite. So they used his guilt and made him into one of the most feared members. Whatever version of this character we get in the James Gunn film, I'm sure it will be a blast. Pun intended. Number 8, King Shark.
And?
Yes, that is your hand. Very good.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to miss that guy in the trailer because, you know, he's a shark. We have a shark now. Great. Who's this shark guy? What's going on? Is it Left Shark? Well, he made his comic book debut back in Superboy Volume 4. He was born in Hawaii and he's a humanoid shark, which I probably didn't need to point out, but his father is the king of all sharks, literally referred to as the shark god. So he was responsible for a few missing persons case, of course, being a hungry shark living in Hawaii and all, and it took a combination of heavy weaponry and sheer luck just to bring him in. Sam Makoa was the one who had to bring him in as well. What a unlucky shift. And several officers were actually taken out during this, so it was quite a mess. Now, as far as his origins go, for the Suicide Squad movie, they could go either way, because his sharkness is rumored to come from a variety of sources. He says his dad is a shark god, but others have said he's just a wild man, which is a race of humanoid animals, and the government thinks he's just a savage mutation from an experiment gone wrong. Either way, he's kind of cute and he's a shark, so I love him. Number 7, Parasite. Rudolph Rudy Jones. He made his first appearance in Firestorm Volume 2, Issue 58, and he started off as a janitor at the Pittsburgh branch of Star Labs, but like anything else that happens at Star Labs, his life was soon changed forever because there was an accident. Well, not really an accident, but while nobody was around, Darkseid turned Rudy into this new version of the Parasite. See, he had existed before Crisis on Infinite Earths, but then that's when Maxwell Jensen was Parasite, so Darkseid controlled him, made him open a waste container, and then he was exposed to this radiation that turned him into this new green skin, well, parasite, of course. So now Rudy has the ability to absorb all the life out of others, leaving just a skeleton sitting there behind. How gross would that be to find on a bus? Now his own body constantly needs to consume more and more or else he won't be able to survive. Hungry, hungry parasite, what a menace. Number 6, Bronze Tiger. Ben Turner is one of the best when it comes to martial arts. He actually is the best. He studied with Richard Dragon under the O-Sensei, but was later brainwashed by the League of Assassins. So we have a great fighter, and then just like that, we have a well-trained fighter on their team. Awesome, that was sick. What's the point of that? He's one of the coolest members because he doesn't have powers, which is amazing, and I had to include him in this list. He's just that good at fighting. He has quick reflexes and he's mastered pretty much every style of fighting. Be it boxing, jiu-jitsu, karate, Muay Thai, taekwondo, you name it, he can break your arms in so many ways. I think that's a better way of putting it. His chi manipulation ability certainly does come in handy though. He uses this to enhance his concentration and heal quicker. In Suicide Squad issue 7, Bronze Tiger is actually able to defeat the speedster Bolshoi. So no powers, but he can still take out a speedster. That's pretty impressive. Number 5, Windfall. Wendy Jones, a former member of the Masters of Disaster, made her DC debut back in Batman in The Outsiders issue 9. Now, she got her powers originally after her mother let her company perform DNA experiments on Wendy and her sister Becky. It was so awful what they went through that Becky actually took out her own mother later in life because of this. She was not happy and she carried a lot of guilt. So her and her sister were once part of the Masters of Disaster, but while Wendy was in school later on, these frat guys assaulted her, to say the least, just awful human beings, and one of those jerks' father was the local district attorney, and he refused to make a case for her when she reported it because of her past as a supervillain. Although his own son is a piece of shit monster. For sure, that makes sense, good logic. Now the college actually kicked Wendy out for this whole scandal, so Wendy returned later to the college and got some good old-fashioned revenge, suffocating that same fraternity by removing the air from their house. So after she was put in Belle Reve Penitentiary, then that's when Amanda recruited her for the Suicide Squad. Number 4, Count Vertigo. The villain that makes you puke. Werner Vertigo made his first debut in World's Finest issue 251, and he comes from the Vladovan royal family. And like his name gives away, his superpower is pretty unique and kind of gross. He makes his enemies disoriented, okay? So he started off by going against Black Canary and Green Arrow, but eventually he made his way to the Suicide Squad. Now, his initial plan before the Suicide Squad was quite simple. He went to Star City to steal back some jewels that his parents had sold when they escaped to England after the war. So he was born with an inner ear problem that affected his balance. So he had a device that helped out planted in the right side of his temple. Now, after messing around with the device, which is something you don't do with any device near your temple, he realized that he had the ability to distort others' perception. Now, it was so bad that they couldn't tell which way was up or down. So he ended up on the naughty list, of course, but he accepted an offer to join the Suicide Squad in order to get his prison sentence reduced. Number 3, Deadshot. Played by the Fresh Prince himself, Will Smith, in the other Suicide Squad movie, Deadshot, aka Floyd Lawton, made his first comic book debut in Batman issue 59. His origin stories are pretty dark, okay? So his parents were both wealthy and they idolized his older brother Edward a lot. Now his father was unfaithful, so his mother actually asked her 2 sons to take him out. That's terrible. So Edward locked Floyd in the boathouse because Floyd wanted to go and at least warn his father, tell him what was going on. So Floyd broke out and he grabbed a hunting rifle where he climbed a tree and saw that his brother had already shot his father. He wasn't dead, but he was paralyzed after the first shot. But then when Edward was preparing to take another shot to end him, Floyd aimed his rifle and shot at him. Now, Floyd meant to disarm him. He meant to, but the branch that he was on had snapped at the last second, so that bullet actually went through the middle of his eyes, which dished out a lot more damage than he intended to. So he took out the brother he loved to protect the father that he hated. That sounds just like a DC villain, if you ask me. So after that point, he was trained by David Kane to become the professional assassin we now know as Deadshot. Number 2, Enchantress, aka June Moon. She made her first debut back in Strange Adventures issue 187 back in 1966, where right at the top it says, "Meet the switcheroo witcheroo, the Enchantress." Now it sounds fun, but she's actually a nightmare. She of course is a member of the Suicide Squad, and Cara Delevingne played her in the first movie. But in the comics, her origins are pretty tragic. See, June Moon was a freelance artist who was dating this guy named Alan Dell. Dell invited her out one evening to a party at the haunted Terror Castle, which sounds like a good time for sure. But while she was there, she fell into a chamber with this being named Zamor, which granted her witch powers. So now every time she says the name Enchantress, she changes into a green-eyed, powerful Enchantress. The downside is whenever June uses these Enchantress abilities and creates magic too quickly, her personality becomes volatile and evil, which explains how she dips into the villain role. And finally, number 1, Amanda Waller. I have to cap this list off with the boss lady herself. She made her debut in DC Comics with Legends issue 1, and she was a powerful political figure who has been in many law enforcement agencies. They referred to her as the Wall because of how aggressive and stubborn she is. She rebuilt Task Force X with Rick Flag assigned to work under her, who I mentioned at the beginning of this list. And eventually she revived the Suicide Squad under her own direction. She's a great character. I mean, Suicide Squad issue 10 was titled Up Against the Wall. It is a a fan favorite with her. Many fans have pointed out that this was the issue where we had the biggest change of pace, and it stepped it up for the Suicide Squad quite a bit. It's his epic story that puts the Dark Knight himself against Amanda Waller. So in this issue, Batman discovers the existence of the Suicide Squad, and his next step of action is to threaten Amanda and say that he's gonna blow the whistle on the whole operation, but Amanda doesn't handle that offer too well because, well, she's the Wall. She explains back to Batman that if he does this, she will use everything in her power to find out who he is and expose him. See, because he used his Matches Malone cover, he wasn't wearing gloves. So when he first investigated Belrave Penitentiary, no gloves means fingerprints. So that threat is not a bad threat at all, Amanda Waller. No powers and you're calling the shots. You're number one in my books. Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Weasel. He's one of those new additions to the team in the highly anticipated James Gunn soft reboot, but who exactly is this sketchy looking villain? All I know is that James Gunn's brother is doing the physical stuff for him, which is great. He did all the work for Rocket Raccoon and Guardians of the Galaxy. So it's gonna be fun. Whatever it is, it's gonna be fun, but who is this guy? Is he powerful? Is he evil? What's his deal? Well, he made his first debut back in Firestorm Volume 2, Issue 36. He made his mark at Stanford University working alongside Professor Martin Stein. Even before this happened, he wasn't liked by other students. He was deemed an unremarkable and unlikable man, and sadly was given the nickname Weasel. He wasn't a fan of this, obviously. It made him pretty insecure, so when he got hired as a teacher at Canterbury University, he was easily fed up with the other faculty members, as it was just those mean students grown up. So, of course. So he viewed them as a threat, obviously, and he dressed up like this Weasel character and started taking them out. He started attacking them one by one. Now, as far as Suicide Squad members go, this is one of the weaker ones pulled out of Belrave Penitentiary. But he is going to be in the new film, so we got to talk about him at least a little bit. He didn't last long in the comics either. His last issue was Doom Patrol and Suicide Squad Special Issue 1, where during a mission to rescue Hawk, Weasel took out the Thinker, who I'll mention later on in this list. And then when Rick Flag put on the Thinker's helmet, the Thinker's last thought took over, and Rick ended up being the one to take the Weasel out. I'm pretty sure this is gonna happen in the movie, but if not, we're still happy. He appeared later on in the comics as well, but this was during the Blackest Night storyline when he was revived as a Black Lantern. And before we continue on with this list of Suicide Squad members, guys, if you want to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, that would be great. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for your support. We're gonna get right back into the video. Let's go. Number 9, Bane. It's kind of hard to forget a villain like Bane. He's a big fan of, breaking backs. And when you break the back of somebody like Batman, you're gonna have to be locked up away for probably a little while. Bane is a super smart villain, and the steroid called Venom that's being pumped into his veins sure does help get the attention of the Suicide Squad. I mean, once you break the bat, that's a pretty good audition, I'd say. At the end of the series, Suicide Squad raised the flag. Amanda Waller recruited Bane to the Suicide Squad, and we once again see Bane rocking the camelback of strength. He's got his Venom again, this time in Outsiders issue 50. The team makes their grand entrance, and Bane, right off the bat, doesn't like following the instructions of leader Rick Flag. Flag says to just simply use the stun gun, and Bane's like, nope, gonna do it my way, thank you, sir. So it's no surprise when the team tricks Bane in Salvation Run issue 2. See, they're assigned to ship villains to Salvation by using boom tubes, and Bane and Deadshot ended up being sent as well. Yeah, get that psycho out of here. Go break some other backs. Or don't break backs, how about that? Go back into jail. Number 8, Killer Croc. A face we saw in David Ayer's Suicide Squad, a face that's rather terrifying, and a face you wouldn't really forget. Killer Croc, aka Waylon Jones, made his first appearance in Detective Comics issue 523. He was born in Florida and faced a medical condition that, well, look at him, it turned him into a crocodile. When he was an adult, he began wrestling alligators at carnivals just to make ends meet, hence the name Killer Croc. That was his stage name at first. But realizing crime was suited best for Waylon, he left the carnival and became one of Gotham's most feared criminals. He wasn't a member until the recent 2016 run of Suicide Squad, and he's like, okay, anything but space. I'll do the missions as long as it's not in space. First mission they go to, space. Number 7, Outlaw. John Henry Martin made his first debut in Manhunter issue 16, but he did in fact join the Suicide Squad in issue 58 of the run from the early 90s. But where exactly did his villain journey start? Well, while John was serving time in prison, because that's how every supervillain starts in comics, this bomb called the Gene Bomb exploded, and it gave him super strength, and it allowed for him to be protected against attacks as well. He couldn't control his abilities well, but he did have these super abilities. He escaped prison, but he didn't get too far, being, unexperienced in these new abilities. So he, alongside other Gene Bomb metahuman victims, were put in Belrave prison, but they couldn't find any traces of these powers that he used, so they just had to send him back out to the first prison that he easily broke out of the first time around. And during the transportation to go back to that prison, he broke out near the Florida-Georgia border, And then Bob's your uncle. Number 6, Atom Smasher. He's the grandson of the supervillain Cyclotron, so you already know he's gonna be a hard time. Meet Albert Rothstein. He made his comic book debut at All-Star Squadron issue 25, and his powers were passed down. Those powers being pretty spectacular. He can control the size of his body. He can change his molecular structure, and he was also the godson of the Golden Age version of the Atom, Al Pratt. In 52, issue 24, Amanda Waller recruits Atom Smasher to go against Black Adam. He actually recruits the squad himself, where he brings on Count Vertigo, Electrocutioner, Persuader, Plastique, and Captain Boomerang 2. Number 5, Captain Boomerang. Okay, so I mentioned Captain Boomerang 2, but we gotta talk about the original, the OG Captain Boomerang. We saw him in the first Suicide Squad movie played by Jai Courtney, and he made his first appearance back in The Flash, issue 117. George Harkness was originally a Flash villain, and if you can take on the fastest man alive, you've got a pretty good resume. So far, so good. His skill set shouldn't shock you given his name, Captain Boomerang. He was the son of an American toy maker, and he created these special boomerangs that helped him get into trouble, alongside his pal Mick Wentworth. Nothing more intimidating than a guy with boomerangs, okay? So of course, Amanda Waller had to recruit this wacky villain. In exchange for a pardon and a prison release, of course, he was sent in to attack Brimstone at Mount Rushmore. I'm excited to see James Gunn's version of Captain Boomerang. He's said to be more or so the same as his version from the last one, but we'll see. He might have a little flashier outfit. I'm okay with that. Number 4, Chemo. He made his first debut in Showcase issue 39 in a story called The Deathless Doom. Now, the scientist kept failing, one experiment after another, but he kept working. He was dedicated to the cause. For science, people, science. So Chemo was not the name of a scientist. No, the scientist's name was Ramsey Norton. Chemo would be an awful name for a scientist. Chemo was the name he had given this plastic vessel to store all these chemicals after the experiments had failed. Big old vat of yuck. So when he finally added some failed growth formula to the mix, this vat came to life. This toxic creation who kept the name Chemo, of course. He ended up taking out the poor scientist that had created him, which is right off the bat truly evil stuff. I feel bad for Chemo though, I'll be honest, because he didn't find out he wasn't a living thing until Supergirl told him in Supergirl Volume 4, Issue 5. She told him he's just a collection of chemicals, and he was so upset he dispersed himself in the atmosphere and then it rained. In Adventures of Superman, he did join the Suicide Squad briefly in issue 593. He worked alongside Manchester Black, Plasmus, and Shrapnel, and their plan was to take out Superman. Number 3, The Thinker. He made his first debut in The Flash issue 12 back in the 40s, and he's been around for quite a while. And while his alias doesn't sound too intimidating, Clifford DeVoe is not one you want to mess around with. We can see him in the trailers for James Gunn's Suicide Squad, and I feel like he'll be around in the movie for quite a while. It seems like he's in quite a good amount of shots. He began his life as Keystone City's district attorney back in 1913, but his life changed when he joined mob boss Norvac one night when he was intoxicated. Just one of those decisions you make when you're drunk and you're like, well, I guess I'm just gonna roll with it. He offered his skills, well, his services rather, as a thinker, a preparer of alibis and legal precedents in order to keep bad guys out of jail. So Novak was like, score, we could definitely use you on our team. Let's go, here's a house, enjoy. So Novak was later on tricked by the Thinker himself when he shot at a reflection in a steel mirror, which caused the bullet to ricochet and then hit himself. So the Thinker wasn't even involved in this case. He had nothing to do with it, really. He got on the Flash's naughty list, but when the Thinker developed the thinking cap, it allowed him to project mental force upon his enemies. So he's got the brains and power to take down many foes. He accepted a mission with the Suicide Squad in order to get a full pardon, where he was seemingly taken out by the Weasel of all people. But in reality, he survived because he's smarter than that. He's a thinker. He actually went on to become friends with Jay Garrick, and you know what? We love a change of heart. Number 2, Peacemaker. John Cena himself is making his debut as Peacemaker in James Gunn's Suicide Squad, but he's also getting his own spin-off series. How exciting is this? When he was first asked about the role during DC Fandom, Cena himself compared the character to a terrible, cocky Captain America, which sounds about right. So Christopher Smith showed up early in comics with the Fightin' 5 issue 40. That was when he was with Charlton Comics. He was part of a paramilitary force that kept the world safe. I mean, he didn't even carry weapons that could cause bodily harm. That's how much he meant well. But then after Crisis on Infinite Earths, he entered DC Comics with the same name, only now he has no problem taking out bad guys, all while spreading peace and love. So the guy's a maniac, basically. To be honest, I could probably watch this guy for an entire season of a show. Definitely, John Cena is great. He's so funny, and he's also so ripped and humongous and terrifying. So it's gonna be a good time. And finally, number 1, Killer Frost. Louise Lincoln, aka Killer Frost. She's actually the second Killer Frost in the comics, but she made her debut with Firestorm Volume 2, Issue 21. She was actually a friend and co-worker of the previous Killer Frost, but after that Frost had passed away, somebody had to step up, right? So she repeated the same experiment, and voila, we have a new and improved Killer Frost. She immediately went after Firestorm because, you know, they were to blame for the death of the previous Frost, which is always great when we have a villain do a nice grudgy start like that. She ended up selling her soul to Neron for more power, so it's safe to say you want to keep your distance with this one. She joined the Suicide Squad briefly in the comics, and she was also a key member in the animated Suicide Squad film Hell to Pay. Kicking off the list at number 10, Slipknot. Yeah, so he was in David Ayer's Suicide Squad, but he didn't last long. I think he was in the movie for 46 seconds, maybe longer. Felt like 46. He got robbed. He's actually really cool in the comics. He's a mercenary who can climb anything. He uses his trusty ropes and grappling hooks, and being a formidable assassin, he should have probably survived longer in that movie. He joined the team in Fury of Firestorm versus the Suicide Squad. In the comics, he and Captain Boomerang believed that the bombs Waller had strapped to their arms were fake, just like in the movie. So Slipknot tried to make a run for it, and in doing so, he got his arm blown to smithereens. And at that point, Captain Boomerang was like, okay, maybe they're real. Maybe they're real. Okay, I believe you. And before we continue on with this list of powerful Suicide Squad members, guys, if you want to go ahead and hit that thumbs up, because it really does help us out quite a bit here at our studio. You guys are the best. Thank you so much. Now let's get right back to the list. Number 9, Katana. Tatsu Yamashiro was a member of David Ayer's Suicide Squad, and she made her comic book debut in The Brave and the Bold, issue 200. She's a skilled martial artist who wields the Soul Taker's sword, which sounds as cool as it is. Her husband's soul is actually one of the many that are trapped inside said sword. She trained as a samurai under Master Tadishi, and then she suited up and headed to America to join the fight for justice. She joined the Suicide Squad in Volume 5, issue 27. Other than being a powerful member of the squad, she's also been a key member of the Outsiders. Number 8, Blockbuster. This absolute unit entered Detective Comics in 1965, issue 345. Mark Desmond was kind of a Bruce Banner situation. Kind of. He was a brilliant scientist who felt like he was too scrawny. Yeah, he wanted to become stronger. He wanted to be bigger. He wanted to get ripped, and Sarah's discovery wasn't cutting it. So what did he do? He created a serum that just made him strong, because that's what you do in comics. He got super strength, but unfortunately the serum side effects resulted in him being a mindless brute, and he no longer was capable of talking as well. He was part of the Suicide Squad in the comics, but again, not for long. One of those characters that was cut too short. In Legends issue 3, Task Force X is sent to Mount Rushmore to take out Brimstone, but Brimstone actually used his fire powers against Blockbuster, and Muscles versus Fire, usually Fire is gonna win that battle. Muscles versus Fire, Fire is probably gonna win 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, definitely. So that was Blockbuster's last appearance, short and sweet. Number 7, El Diablo. This was a key member in the climax of David Ayer's Suicide Squad. Cheto Santana, he joined the team in 2011 with the New 52's version of the Suicide Squad. And his powers, well, yeah, you probably guessed it. Similar to that fire guy I was just talking about. He has the powers of pyrokinesis, and when he uses up all of his power, like we saw on the big screen, he can become much larger. He grows wings too. He straight up becomes a fire demon. How scary is that? Now, he's got quite the temper. Back before his Suicide Squad days were even upon him, he burned down an entire building just to settle a score with a gang. But then when he realized that innocent people were involved, obviously he turned himself in. So he's trying, you know? Number 6, Black Manta. David Hyde, most would recognize as a major Aquaman villain, aka Black Manta. The most recent incarnation of the villain was introduced in Aquaman Volume 7, Issue 7. He grew up on a houseboat, excelling in diving and treasure hunting, and his parents were divorced and he's stuck with his father, Jesse Hyde. Cause yeah, treasure hunting beats pretty much whatever's going on Mom's side. Sorry. They were looking for the Black Pearl, which wasn't a ship with Johnny Depp drunk aboard. Rather, it was a pearl that granted its users hydrokinetic abilities. And in Teen Titans Volume 6, Issue 10, David found that pearl. He later joined the squad in Volume 4 when he thought Aquaman had perished, because he figured, well, nothing better to do, might as well just join this team and do some villain stuff. Number 5, Mind Boggler. First appearing in Firestorm Volume 2, Issue 29, Leia Wasserman is a punk rocker who just happens to have been given powers by Breathtaker of the Assassination Bureau. Those powers being mind control, and she's actually really, really good at it. Her name is Mind Boggler, so she must be, right? She can make the walls seem like they're closing in, resulting in her victim to suffer a loss of equilibrium that they just instantly feel nauseous. Hey, it's Mind Boggler. Yeah. One sec. She was on the Suicide Squad, but Captain Boomerang let her get riddled with bullets. You know, because she humiliated him for harassing another member. So yeah, Captain Boomerang's kind of the worst. Number 4, Mr. 104. Not to be confused with Mr. 305, although they are very similar. We now go to Doom Patrol and Suicide Squad Special. He's originally a Doom Patrol villain, but they all teamed up to rescue Hawk in Nicaragua, so I had to include this guy because, well, he would be much different now if he came around in the comics or the movies. Mr. 104 can transform his body into any of the elements. See, back then there were only 104. Now this dude could have transformed into 118. Or whatever the number is. Unfortunately, his time as a Suicide Squad member was cut short while they were fighting the Rocket Red Brigade. Number 3, Punch and Julie. A 2-for-1 combo coming right at you. Okay, so this criminal duo made their first appearance in Secret Origins Volume 2, Issue 28. And they're not taken seriously by most, but they've been known to be just as unpredictable as the Joker and Harley Quinn. See, Julie grew up in Brooklyn with Punch, and they worked as puppeteers at Coney Island during the day, which sounds like a blast. But at nighttime, the couple drifts into the shadows and they become thieves. They came across a container filled with alien weaponry, and they used it to create this underground base in Coney Island. And their criminal super career was born. They were recruited by the Suicide Squad in issue 24 of Ostrander's run in the 80s, but they left when a pregnancy came into the picture. Probably a good time to quit a Suicide Squad. I'd agree on that departure for sure. Number 2, Captain Cold. Leonard Snart made his debut in Showcase issue 8. Now, Leonard enjoyed the company of his grandfather, who ran an ice cream truck, but after he passed away, Leonard had to just spend his remaining days with his father, who was just a terrible parent all around. So this led to Leonard joining a group of thieves, but he was caught by the Flash. See, originally he was a Flash villain. So next he studied the energy emissions of a cyclotron and figured, maybe it could work against this Flash guy. So he designed a weapon that could freeze people using the moisture in the air, Frozone style. And then he later on joined the squad in issue 17. I would be pretty pumped to see Captain Cold in live action. I feel like we need an evil Frozone on the big screen, that's for sure. And finally, coming in at number 1, Poison Ivy. Pamela Isley, there we go. She joined the team in issue 33. She actually stuck around for quite a while. She made her comic book debut way back earlier in Batman issue 181. She studied botany in Seattle, and after she was poisoned from special herbs, she got these fantastic abilities, and now she's invulnerable to all these poisons. And after spending some time in prison after run-ins with the Bat, she was recruited to the Suicide Squad. Like I said, she stuck around for quite a while. She helped the team out from issues 33 to 66. Now, around the same time, she was also spreading deadly toxins around Gotham City in hopes that the only remaining citizens would be those naturally immune. So yeah, she's kind of a big bad deal.
Number 10, Grant Morrison. Is Grant Morrison really a villain though? Well, this version of the writer is. We aren't really talking about legendary comic book writer Grant Morrison here, just to clarify. They obviously are busy writing comics and not necessarily appearing in them because, you know, we're people, we can't really actually go into comics. This character, however, does share their name and profession and was created by Grant Morrison himself and Chaz Truog. Grant Morrison is portrayed as a character in the comics who is the enemy of Animal Man and goes by the alias of Writer. The Writer had reality-altering powers connected to, of course, their writing. Obviously, the character was created as a kind of fun joke by actual real-world writer Grant Morrison. Morrison and Truog's Grant Morrison ended up on the Suicide Squad during War of the Gods. The character perished in issue 58 of volume 1 of the Suicide Squad. Sad. No more Grant Morrison. All we have is Grant Morrison left. Number 9, Reverse Flash. Okay. So it's not Eobard Thawne, Reverse Flash, it's Daniel West. But I still think Daniel West is really cool, and more of a tragic character actually than Thawne, so I'm including him, even though he is a newer character. Or at least he was anyways. During his time on the Suicide Squad, he ended up dying. He ended up injuring his knee on a mission after pushing himself too hard in terms of speed. And so, when he had to race against the clock to dispose of a time bomb that threatened an entire village, he ended up sacrificing himself to save the day. Well, initially, he actually succeeded. He had dropped the time bomb into the ocean to dispose of it, mission accomplished, everything was safe, but while running back across the water, he tripped and ended up getting sucked into the vortex that the explosive created. Sad stuff. Reverse Flash joined the new Suicide Squad in issue 5, and he died later on in the new Suicide Squad Annual, issue number 1. I mean, it's the Suicide Squad. Someone's gotta die. And friends, before we move on to this next point, if you're enjoying this list and you want to learn even more about the Suicide Squad, please give this video a thumbs up. I personally love going into it with you. So yeah, if you want more of it, let us know. Also, yeah, maybe hit subscribe. Hit subscribe while you're down there. Did you hit subscribe yet? You should do it. 9 out of 10 people highly recommend hitting subscribe. I mean, this is a made-up statistic, so 10 out of 10 people recommend hitting subscribe. Number 8, Killer Frost. Back when Caitlin Snow was still a villain, she was part of the Suicide Squad. She was a scientist who was turned into a heat vampire after an experiment gone wrong where she was betrayed by her own colleagues. That's how she got her powers. As Killer Frost, Caitlin Snow appeared as a member of the Suicide Squad during the Justice League vs. Suicide Squad limited series. As a result of that story, she ended up actually turning to the side of good after. Batman negotiated her release from Belle Reve after she had helped to save the world, though she did, of course, remain on parole. Because, you know, let's not go crazy here. As a hero, Killer Frost would drop the killer part of her moniker, going instead by just Frost. Number 7, Cyborg Superman. Cyborg Superman is another villain who you might not know served on the team. Cyborg Superman is Hank Henshaw, who was one of the replacements for Superman following the events of the Death of Superman story. Of course, he quickly turned to the side of evil, as some cyborgs are known to do. I'm not looking at you, Cyborg, so don't worry, you're still cool. Cyborg Superman would appear as a member of the Suicide Squad team during the events of Convergence in the Suicide Squad Convergence series in issues 1 and 2. Spoiler alert, it didn't go well for that team. As soon as Cyborg Superman was unleashed as well, he pretty much instantly turned on everyone, ending up in a brief one-on-one fight with Star Sapphire. Number 6, Dr. Light. Dr. Light might not be a big-time foe to some, but he's definitely a memorable villain considering that he's been involved in some pretty major plots in DC. He's not really anyone's main squeeze of a nemesis, but instead is just a general villain, and a pretty terrible person overall. He ended up joining the Suicide Squad during the New Earth continuity, appearing in John Ostrander original Suicide Squad volume, attempting to get recruited in issue 19, but being denied, and then later joining the team in issue 24. Light wanted to join initially to get time removed from his sentence, but later joined mainly because he was doubting himself and was made to feel less than by Jacob Finley, who operated as a heroic version of Dr. Light for a brief time. Arthur was Jacob's friend and colleague, but was also responsible for his death. Dr. Light would later die, go to hell, be resurrected briefly only to die again in his grave, and then be brought back one more time. Once more back to life, but more permanently now. He attempted to rejoin the squad, but was denied re-entry by Amanda Waller. Sad. A lot of denials for Dr. Light, but he was on it for a little bit of time. Number 5, Ravager. Ravager is the moniker for Rose Wilson, crazed daughter of Slade Wilson, who wanted initially to be just like her father, and to prove it, she even cut out her eye to match him. Yikes. Rose often operates as her father, Deathstroke's apprentice, wanting to learn how to be a skilled, deadly mercenary assassin just like him. Rose's feelings about her father have more recently become more complicated in the comics since then, and she currently has more of a love-hate relationship with her dad right now. She appears as a member of the version of the Suicide Squad from the DC Bombshells universe, working alongside Batgirl, Enchantress, Killer Croc, Francine Charles, and, of course, Amanda Waller. Number 4, Captain Cold. Captain Cold is a well-known Flash villain and is often known as the leader of the supervillain team, the Rogues. But did you also know that he was on the Suicide Squad as well? Yep. Captain Cold made his first appearance on the team in issue 16 of the original Suicide Squad volume, where he very casually just kind of appeared there as a member of the team. He seemed pretty friendly with Captain Boomerang in this issue, I guess because they're both criminals and they're both captains? Captains gotta stick together, I suppose, but apparently not too close or for too long, as Captain Cold only appeared for a few issues with the team after his initial appearance. By issue 20, he was pretty much gone. Number 3, Bane. When we think major Batman villains, Bane is definitely one of them. He was made famous after being one of the antagonists known for his ability to break Batman, literally, during the events of Nightfall. More recently during Tom King's run, Bane would return to torment Batman once more, this time focusing on not just defeating him physically, but mentally as well. Bane was well on his way to becoming a national hero permanently when Amanda Waller intervened behind the scenes and ended up rigging the nation of Santa Priska's democratic election. Frustrated by this, but without knowing who to blame, Bane used his influence to invoke martial law. This created civil unrest and basically all-out war in the country, and ultimately ruined Bane's newly acquired hero status. As a result of his fall from grace, he ended up joining the Suicide Squad and ended up back on Venom. Number 2, Star Sapphire. During the events of Convergence, Star Sapphire ended up joining the Suicide Squad. Many Green Lantern fans know Star Sapphire as Carol Ferris, Hal Jordan's sometimes main squeeze and oftentimes villain. She is part of the Violet Lanterns Corps. In Convergence Suicide Squad issue number 1, Carol offered to join the team. Amanda Waller was initially hesitant to accept, as Carol usually loses control while in her Star Sapphire form, but this time around Carol exhibited her ability to remain in control, and so she joined up. Number 1, the Penguin. Another famous Batman villain who joined the team, but only appeared for a few issues during the first volume. Penguin joined the Suicide Squad in issue number 5 of Ostrander's run. He was actually arrested for something that doesn't really seem criminal, but more has to do with, I think, the prejudice of the justice system. Initially, Penguin emerged from prison after being caught by Batman and proclaimed he actually would no longer be a villain. He was on the straight and narrow because he was in love and his partner did not want him to be involved with crime. He opened an umbrella factory but hired ex-cons, which was deemed by the law as him consorting with known felons. Huh? Although this could be considered just him trying to help reformed criminals restart their lives. Jeez. Anyways, after going to jail, Amanda Waller recruits him to the Suicide Squad. In exchange for completing the mission, he'll become a free man again. Of course, I'm pretty sure for some reason it doesn't actually work out that way, even though he does help with the mission. During the mission, Penguin is almost killed and also just nearly makes it out alive. But yeah, I'm pretty sure he goes back to jail after that. So, what? Man, this justice system is all messed up. No wonder Penguin's becoming a criminal. Can't get ahead.
Number 10, Deadshot. Also known as Floyd Lawton, Deadshot was kind of done dirty by the Suicide Squad movie. An expert marksman can only really do so much against a demonic witch. A recurring and long-standing member of the Suicide Squad, Deadshot is known for his firearm skills and unmatched accuracy that his name would suggest. He is one of the most feared assassins in the DC universe and has hand-to-hand fighting skills on par with guys like Deathstroke. For a guy without any superpowers, he's a pretty serious threat. He is known for never missing a shot and once worked with Batman to take down the Cobra cult. He is in peak human condition, a weapons expert, and has sweet demolition skills as well, having once killed 28 civilians with a bomb. He is a skilled, self-taught engineer as well. He even built his signature wrist-mounted guns all on his own. Number 9, Deathstroke. With strengths and reflexes that are 10 times that of the average soldier, Deathstroke is definitely a powerful dude. He can use 90% of his brain, making him one of the best tactical strategists in the world. His time with the Suicide Squad was pretty short, as a group of Russians wind up offering him a better deal and he just kinda leaves. He does have a set of skills that has allowed him to beat multiple members of the Justice League in the past. The only contract he's ever failed to complete is one against the Teen Titans. He is commonly considered to be the world's deadliest assassin, and he benefits from a wide range of powers. His abilities include accelerated healing, toxic immunity, and superhuman senses. He also has superhuman strength, speed, and stamina, and can exert himself for hours without tiring, even while wearing heavy body armor. He is also a genius with an eidetic memory and tactical analysis on par with Batman. He once took on 300 opponents at once. Number 8, Poison Ivy. Another long-standing member of the Suicide Squad is Poison Ivy, who seduces men with plant-based abilities and kills them with a single kiss. She is a champion of the green, the energy force behind plant-based life. She has many abilities, including being able to control humans using plant pheromones and mutate plant life, making monstrous creations or giant vines she can use to her advantage. Swamp Thing once said that her powers have a mythical component and her power likely rivals his own, calling her the May Queen, the mother of spring and summer. She is crazy powerful, having once brought an entire tree crashing down on Clayface, and another time brought down a skyscraper with some giant vines. She is a master of seduction and taunts her trapped opponents with their human desires. She can regenerate her limbs and even benefits from decelerated aging. If you're thinking she sounds about perfect right now, I should warn you, she's also mentally unstable. Number 7, El Diablo. The name El Diablo has belonged to other characters in DC's past, but the Suicide Squad Diablo is Chato Santana, a powerful criminal with power over fire. When he uses his full power, he transforms into a demonic form with wings. His powers are based in magic, having received them from Lazarus Lane, the first El Diablo. When transformed, his demonic avatar was powerful enough to take on Incubus, a demon from another dimension. El Diablo has other abilities as well, including being able to travel to hell, and Suicide Squad director Amanda Waller claims El Diablo is one of the most powerful metahumans in the world. Number 6. Harley Quinn. Another powerful member of the Suicide Squad, and a face I'm sure you were expecting to see, Harley Quinn. She has come a long way from being sidekick to the Joker. She's been a partner in crime, a proper villain herself, and at times a vigilante. She has a pull-no-punches approach to combat and questionable sanity, but she was once a criminal psychologist, so she kinda knows what she's on about. Specific kind of crazy. She is immune to most toxins and poisons, and is advanced at hand-to-hand combat, with great skill regarding weapons, skills, and leadership. Watch out for that sanity though. After Joker was skinned alive and killed, she broke into an evidence locker to steal his face, only to kidnap Deadshot and make him wear it while she asks questions. She might not be the most physically powerful, but she will definitely mess up your day. Number 5. Killer Frost. She's now just known as Frost, but she used to be a formidable villain and a member of the Suicide Squad. She was a bright young scientist working for Star Labs in the Arctic Circle, working on a self-sustaining thermodynamic ultraconductor engine, basically a perpetual motion machine. But the only perpetual motion happening here is DC perpetuating the same stereotypes, am I right? This icy-hearted femme fatale becomes a vampiric being who craves heat and absorbs it from living beings to sustain herself. For real. Her colleagues are revealed to be secretly working for an organization called Hive, who wants to keep the machine secret to protect their existing investments. They attempt to silence her by placing her inside the working ultraconductor engine, where she panics and rips out some wires connected to the coolant system. Her biological makeup is infused with ice and she becomes Frost. Part of her power is her unique physiology. Rather than being made of ice, her body is actually encased in permafrost, and she generates organic ice-like cells which make up her chemistry. She can spear her opponents with ice shards like a mage from Skyrim, and create ice storms powerful enough to kill people. She has a genius level intellect as well, but she will die if she spends too much time chilling. She really starts to feel the heat if she's not absorbing everybody's. I don't know, I tried a lot of different funny puns here about the stealing the heat thing, but none of them really hit. Number 4, Black Orchid. Although many people have taken the mantle of Black Orchid, the original and most connected to the Suicide Squad is Susan Linden Thorne. She developed a love for plant life from her high school sweetheart, a botanist named Philip Sylvain. Her father was abusive, and she ran away as a child, becoming a blackjack dealer and getting into trouble, later returning to Philip, who used his plant-based studies to turn her into a human-plant hybrid named Black Orchid. She brought many criminals to justice, but could never get to Lex Luthor. And when she does, he has her killed. Miraculously, her consciousness flees back to the lab, and this causes a second orchid body to awaken. Her main ability is her total mastery of disguises, but she is also very powerful outside this. Nearly invulnerable, in fact. She can fly, project force fields, and has superhuman strength, speed, and agility. She does, however, have a weakness against Weed Killer due to her unique physiology. Still more powerful than Poison Ivy. Number 3, Black Adam. The nemesis of Shazam, Black Adam was once a member of the Suicide Squad. He requests the squad's help to help fight against an evil sorceress in Suicide Squad Volume 2 and 3, temporarily joining them. Black Adam was once a candidate to replace the wizard Shazam, but he was unfortunately corrupted by the power. Unlike his nemesis Billy Batson, who has the power of the 7 Greek gods, Adam has the power of 7 Egyptian gods. He is literally an unstoppable powerhouse that not even Superman could defeat by himself. He can use lightning as a weapon and benefits from accelerated healing and a whole host of other powers bestowed upon him by the Egyptian gods. He is set to appear in an upcoming DC film, portrayed by none other than The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. Number 2, Parasite. That's right, even Parasite has been a member of the Suicide Squad. In New Suicide Squad number 9. No doubt one of their most powerful members ever, Parasite's ability to absorb powers from the people he touches makes him a threat to even Superman. Not only this, but by absorbing excess energy, Parasite's body mutates and he becomes even stronger. This during a period of time where he was keeping the powers that he absorbed. He also absorbs memories, meaning that he can learn the secret identity of heroes like Superman. It's Parasite's potential for power, depending on who he absorbs from, that lands him so high on our list. Number 1. Enchantress. Enchantress is a magic-powered supervillain contained in a human host named June Moon. Enchantress was originally June's second personality, but it's later established that the Enchantress is a separate entity during the In the Dark storyline. Enchantress has seriously earned her spot as the Suicide Squad's most powerful member. She is fused with an extra-dimensional demonic entity, which led her to developing the Enchantress persona that she switches to by saying her alter ego's name. The Justice League Dark was actually assembled to help take her on, and as of the New 52, Enchantress has become even more powerful, even surpassing Zatanna, who is powerful enough to do basically anything in terms of magic ability. Enchantress once conjured hundreds of clones of herself. She has a crazy collection of powers, including force fields, flight, necromancy, possession, and control of the elements and weather. She can even stop time.
Kicking off the list at number 10, we have Trial by Blood and Fire. The very first Suicide Squad issue made its first debut back in 1987, and on the cover in big inviting letters says, "These 8 people will put their lives on the line for our country. One of them won't be coming home. Ooh-wee, wonder who it is." So the 2-issue story was just the beginning of a very long, successful run, starting with a fresh lineup of characters that are super well known, like Deadshot and Captain Boomerang. Now, the first issue has an explosive introduction with the stakes raised so high and so fast, with Air Force One being attacked and so many people injured in the process in just 1 minute and 7 seconds, apparently. So who better to call to take down the nasty group than our new group of heroes? So issue 2, titled Trial by Fire, picks up with Captain Boomerang being Australian, the most Australian, saying things like "cripes" and other stuff. And we see our team in full force, and it's an action-packed introduction. So if you're looking for a place to start, I mean, the beginning is often a safe bet. And in this case, it's one of the most fun issues to read. There's a link, page 18 for that link. Sick. And before we go on to number 9, if you guys could go ahead down there and click us a little thumbs up, that would be great, because it helps us out a lot here at our secret studio. Top secret, don't tell anyone. Okay, you guys rock. Now back to some badass Suicide Squad missions. Number 9, The Phoenix Gambit. Written by Kim Yale and John Ostrander, who has pretty much written all of these except for maybe a couple. This 4-parter begins with the Suicide Squad Volume 1, Issue 40. So we start with Batman finding a body on the ground near the harbor in Gotham City, and the victim was Nicholas Varga, who owned the shipping yard. Now the body was found as if it was dropped from a great height, but there's no buildings nearby, right? How mysterious. So Batman thinks he was thrown from a ship, which is one hell of a toss. That plus a squished bullet, this is the work of a metahuman for sure. Definitely for sure. So this detective work soon becomes a mission he works alongside a returned Suicide Squad to prevent an international conflict to take place. It's a lot of fun to see Batman go in and convince these big players to work together. I think that's the best part of this whole story. And of course he does it in his usual Batman ways. Yeah, it's super political and the 4-parter keeps you hooked. It's a slow burn, it takes time to get cooking, but the action is really fun and the pages become more and more stressful. It'll truly leave your head spinning. Number 8, The Janus Directive. Suicide Squad issues 27 to 30, known as the Janus Directive story, is a big one. So we find this epic crossover with all the major government operations with superheroes, and I'm talking about Checkmate, Project Adam, the Central Bureau of Intelligence, the Peacemaker Project, the Force of July, and of course our very own Suicide Squad, and they're all going at each other because Amanda Waller decided she wanted to be a rogue operation. But all the while we have Cobra trying to take down the government and replace Amanda Waller with a doppelganger. And the doppelganger of course doesn't last long, and Amanda decides to take its place and went to take down Cobra from the inside. It's crazy, a lot of shit goes down. So every organization thinks that they're after each other thanks to this intel referred to as, you guessed it, the Janus Directive. Number 7, Deadshot Bulletproof. This time we have a story coming to us not by Ostrander, but by Christos and Gage. So we get an up close and personal look at a fan favorite member, Deadshot, who most of us know now as Will Smith, and soon we'll know him as Idris Elba. Gotta love DC and their DC-ness. So we find Floyd Lawton, and he has a bit more depth to him this time around in the 2005 five-parter, specifically in the form of a daughter. That's right, he finds out that she's currently residing in a violent neighborhood, so he goes in to clean up a bit. And if that means taking out some gang members, then so be it. Family is family. Number 6, Up Against the Wall. Suicide Squad issue 10, titled Up Against the Wall, is a big fan favorite. So many fans have pointed out that this issue was the biggest change of pace and stepped it up quite a bit for the Suicide Squad title. So we have this epic story that puts the Dark Knight himself against Amanda Waller. It's the issue where Batman discovers the existence of the Suicide Squad. It's a big deal, and let's just say he was pretty shocked about it. He actually threatens Amanda that he's gonna blow the whistle on the whole operation, but Amanda doesn't exactly react too kindly to that. I mean, you know, as fun as exposing a covert government sounds, she explains back to Batman that if he does this, she will use everything in her power to find out who he is. See, because he used his Matches Malone cover, he wasn't wearing gloves when he first investigated Belrave Penitentiary. No gloves means fingerprints. Not a bad threat, Waller, not a bad threat. Number 5, In Control / Out of Control. So after the events of The Killing Joke, Barbara Gordon was of course never the same. See, the Joker had put a bullet in her, causing her to remain in a wheelchair. But Ostrander and Yale went a smart route and made her become Oracle, the expert hacker. And it was fun for readers to find out that Oracle was actually Barbara. It was a nice reintroduction, you know? But most importantly, the Suicide Squad at this point didn't know that yet. They didn't know this big reveal. It was just the readers. So it feels like we're in on something secret, you know? So in Suicide Squad issues 48 and 49, it starts with Barbara reliving the horrible events that night. And it ends with her and Amanda becoming closer. Of course, after Barbara fought off the Thinker, that is. Number 4, Final Round. Suicide Squad issue 22, titled The Final Round, is a single issue that actually ties together a bunch of subplots. Let me explain. So it's gotta be in here. It's a very, very juicy one. So after Senator Cray hears about the Suicide Squad, he blackmails Amanda to support his re-election, or else he would start spilling secrets, right? A lot of blackmailing, God. So now she's trying to think of another plan to blackmail him back, you know, get some dirt. But Rick Flag is already on his way to go over and kill Senator Cray and Derek Tolliver. Derek's actually the one who told Cray about it in the first place, so he's involved. So Amanda sent out the Suicide Squad to stop Rick Flag, and well, if you know anything about Rick Flag, that's not going to be an easy task. Some team members are torn at the idea of having to kill Flag, and then when Deadshot steps in to intervene, he ends up ultimately changing his mind and going against Amanda's orders and killing Cray, bam, right there, right then. And Deadshot actually barely survived this. He got shot numerous times after. It was a whole thing. Number 3, Bad Blood. Written by Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo, we get a promising front cover saying, by the end of this issue, half of the team will be dead. But why? What is this, Infinity War? Someone gonna snap their fingers? Well, the squad gets assigned a new mission to take down some super terrorists called the Revolutionaries. But here's the twist that made this issue stand out. The surviving Revolutionary members are joining the Suicide Squad. So what a weird thing. It's like, hey, fight him, but whoever wins is gonna join you. So you're like, okay. So Harley Quinn and Deadshot basically have to figure out who to trust when they were assigned to also kill them at the same time. It's a fun concept and a pretty exciting introduction to some new faces. Number 2, Apocalypse Now. Okay, this one's a huge 4-part storyline spanning from issue 33 to 36. Okay, we pick up with Amanda after she has lost control over the Suicide Squad, right? This is a big time. So a new commander has taken her place and she has to try and figure out a plan to get back into the driver's seat, get back into control. Meanwhile, there's a task force member who returns to Apocalypse, putting the team at jeopardy. And where else to fight a god then? Well, off-world. That's right, in this amazing issue, we get to see the squad square up against Darkseid on Apocalypse, and it's gloriously gory. It's terrifying. Also, bonus points for Amanda Waller versus Granny Goodness, which is just icing on the cake for this whole thing. Apocalypse Now is a fun read. I mean, all these humans stuck dealing with Darkseid, it's a genuinely horrific experience for some of them. This is very out of their ballpark. And we also see a great moment from Dr. Light. Poison Ivy's in the mix and she kicks some ass. Led by Lashina of the Female Furies, the team's adventure to Apocalypse is one you definitely won't forget. And then soon after we have, drumroll, that's right, number 1, The Coils of the Loa. Taking place right after Apocalypse Now, this 3-parter epic begins, of course, with issue 37. And it's so great because the main focus is on Amanda Waller now, and just how far she's willing to go. So The Coils of the Loa is the storyline, of course, that focuses on the Suicide Squad and how they just returned from off-world. Meanwhile, the Loa family was developing drugs that would straight up turn people into zombies, and they publicly outed the Suicide Squad. A lot of drama happening in these 3 issues, oh my god. So the squad had to be shut down. I mean, the world knows about them now, it's done, cat's out of the bag. But Amanda Waller decides she's not done yet and sends out another squad to take out the Loa family once and for all. But it sure doesn't help when 3 squad members who were promised early release take a run for it after that last job that I just mentioned. So Suicide Squad from 33 to 39, if you need to kill some time, these are your must reads, bam.